Unto the Lord our God, for he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love, and abounding in steadfast love. And now you may be seated because this is an awfully long gospel. So, we have a couple of these in John, these really long gospels, so just bear with us. So, the Holy Gospel today is according to the Gospel of St. John, the 9th chapter, beginning with the first verse.
Glory to you, Lord.
As Jesus walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's work might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with the saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. Then he went and washed and came back able to see. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, "Is not this the man who used to sit and beg?" Some were saying, "It is he." Others were saying, "No, but it is someone like him." He kept saying, "I am the man." But they kept asking him, "Then how were your eyes opened?" He answered, "The man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' Then I went and washed and received my sight." They asked him, "Where is he?" And he answered, "I do not know." They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Now it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also began to ask him how he had received his sight. He said to them, "He put mud on my eyes, and then I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath." But others said, "How can a man who is a sinner perform such signs?" And they were divided. So they said again to the blind man, "What do you say about him? It was your eyes he opened." He replied, "He is a prophet." The Jews did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received his sight and asked them, "Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then now does he see?" His parents answered him, "We know that this is our son and that he was born blind, but we do not know how it is that he sees, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him. He is of age, he will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that anyone who would confess Jesus to be the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. Therefore his parents said, "He is of age, ask him." So for a second time they called the man who had been born blind, and they said to him, "Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner." He answered, "I do not know whether he is a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." They said to him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered them, "I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples?" Then they reviled him, saying, "You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from." The man answered, "Here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but he does listen to one who worships him and obeys his will. Never since the world begun has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. This man were not from God, he could do nothing." They answered him, "You were born entirely in sins, and are you trying to teach us?" They drove him out. Jesus heard that they had driven him out, and when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered, "And who is he, sir? Tell me, so that I may believe in him." Jesus said to him, "You have seen him. The one speaking with you is he." He said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. Jesus said, "I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and those who do see may become blind." Some of the Pharisees near him heard this and said to him, "Surely we are not blind, are we?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would not have sin. But now that you say we see, your sin remains." This is the gospel of our Lord. So we have some baptisms today, and we have this wonderful water, right? This special water that we get from that very special place, right? Down in the basement from the coffee maker. I'm stuck with water today as I think about our Gospel of John. Water is everywhere. At its core, it's such a simple thing. It's three molecules, hydrogen and two molecules of hydrogen, one molecule of oxygen. Simple piece of creation. And yet, so beautiful and so complex, able to do things that no other element on earth can do. The Gospel of John is a little bit like water. On its surface, it is so simple. It tells straight stories that we can grab onto and we understand. It has lines like John 3:16, "For God so loved the world," stuff that we can grab onto and we know. And yet, John also represents so much more and is so complex. There's a reason our readings are so long in the Gospel of John. It's because you can't really split these stories up. There aren't good places to stop because John wants to tell the whole story and throw in some really interesting things. And so I wanted to kind of take some time and walk through this story a little bit because it is a fascinating story with a lot of interesting layers. So it starts out with Jesus and his disciples, and they're walking along, and they see this man who was born blind. Now, I don't know what he's doing at the time. People in his neighborhood know him as a beggar, so maybe he is sitting and begging. But in any case, the disciples see him, and they don't see a person necessarily. They see a prop for a theological question. Because they ask Jesus, they see this man, and they go, "Jesus, who sinned? This man or his parents?" Now that is a loaded question, because this was a very important argument that was going back and forth throughout the ancient world. Because the belief was that if you were suffering from some sort of ailment, if you had some sort of handicap, or something bad happened in your life, it was because you were being punished by God. And so then they ran into the problem of those who were born that way. Well, the question becomes, well, did they sin even before they were born? How does that work? Or is it the sin of their parents that God is visiting upon their children? They have this idea, it's either A or it's B. It's either this box or this box, black and white. Those are the two options. Either he sinned or his parents sinned. That's the only reason he could be the way he is. And Jesus, as Jesus so often does, answers in a third, better way. By saying, no, neither this man nor his parents sinned. He is blind, and we can find glory in that blindness. His blindness is going to teach you something about the love of God. So Jesus then, he goes and he heals this man. And I love how he does this, because Jesus is a man of this earth and the dirt and the grime of this earth. And he looks down and he sees dust everywhere and he spits. Maybe there wasn't water nearby, but I love that he uses spit, and he spits into the dirt and he mixes it together to make this mud, and he puts it on the man's eyes and tells him, "Go and wash in the pool of Siloam." Now in our gospel, in a little parentheses after the pool of Siloam, it says, which means sent. But there is actually so much more to this pool of Siloam. So a couple weeks ago, I was away on a continuing education, and the speaker there was actually one of my favorite professors, Professor Craig Kester from seminary. And he is an expert on the Gospel of John and symbolism in the Gospel of John. In fact, he wrote a book, the fourth Gospel and its symbolism, or Symbolism in the Fourth Gospel, that's what it is. So he was talking about this a little bit, and he talked about this pool of Siloam and how it is so much more than just a regular everyday pool. This was a very special pool that the Jews at the time used in a very fun, exciting festival that they would have, where they would celebrate the gift of water. And this was a really big deal. Everyone would come. This was one of the better parties you could find during this time. And the priest would have for 7 days, they would throw this party. And each day, the priest would take this cup, and he would walk down into the pool of Siloam, and he would fill the cup with water. And then he would walk out, and he would walk around the crowd holding this big cup of water, and he would walk all the way around, and he would walk up on this altar, and it was a huge, huge altar. We have a pretty big one, but it's way bigger than that, like almost this entire space up here. Excuse me, I had water go down the wrong tube. Speaking of water. So, he gets up there on the altar, and he pours the water out, and everyone says praise to God for the gift of water, the gift of life. Because even then, they knew that water brought life. And it was this big, fun party. They had these huge lanterns up, and they would fill them with oil and keep them alight all night. And it was one of the few times that you could stay up all night and party because they had enough light to do so. So Jesus telling this man to go and wash his eyes in the pool of Siloam is probably not choosing it just because it's the closest pool. But because it is tied to this praise, to this gratefulness towards water, towards the idea of God's gift of life, of creating something new. So this man goes to the pool of Siloam, and he washes, and he comes out of the pool able to see. And at this point, he hasn't seen Jesus. He's not quite sure who he is. And everyone who knows him starts to question, right? Because they have already put him into a box. They already think they've got him all figured out. This is the man who was born blind, and he begs. Because if you're born blind, you can't enter into the workforce. So this is just that guy over there. They think they've got him completely pegged, and so when he comes back able to see, they are perplexed. Some of them are, wait, that looks like the guy, aren't you? I think that's the same guy. And others are saying, no, it can't be. It's got to be someone else. Because it doesn't fit with who they think he is. And then he goes to the Pharisees. And this is one of my favorite parts because this guy has some gumption. I love the way he talks with the Pharisees here. They see him, and he is a paradox to them. Because he doesn't fit in their idea of how God works, of how this world works. They have it all figured out that if you are going to be from God, then you follow all these rules. That's how you show you're from God. And one of the most important ones is you don't do any work on the Sabbath. So this man who healed this blind man did it on the Sabbath. So obviously he can't be from God. But then you've got the other argument. Yeah, but he healed this guy. He was blind, and now he can see. And only those who come from God have the power to do something that incredible. So here it is. They have these two statements that seem to be at odds with each other, and they cannot reconcile it. And so they argue amongst themselves, and then they decide, well, maybe this guy is just lying, right? Maybe he was never blind. He's just trying to fool us, because then that would fit with what we're doing here, with what we understand. So they call in his parents, and his parents tell him, no, he was born blind. But they're a little afraid to start pushing those questions too far because they know that the leaders have an idea of what they want. So they pass the buck off to the man. And here we have the man called in front of the Pharisees again. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because he calls himself a disciple. He knows who he was. See, before, everyone has put him down as he is the man born blind, or he is the beggar, or he is the cautionary tale that we tell our kids so that they behave. But he doesn't see himself as that anymore. He sees himself as a disciple, and it seems to give him an incredible amount of confidence. Because when the Pharisees start questioning him and really get after him, he answers, and it's almost sarcastic when he goes, well, what, do you want to be his disciple too? I've already told you what happened. Why do you keep asking me? I mean, I can maybe give you an introduction if that's what you want. I mean, he really just stands there, and he's not willing to go back. He's not willing to deny what happened to him. His eyes are open, but not just to the world, but to the glory of God. And eventually, they get tired of this. He won't fit in their patterns, and so they kick him out, so they don't have to see this example of why they're thinking of things wrong. And Jesus goes and he finds him. For the second time in the story, Jesus finds him and speaks to him and gives him a new role as a disciple, as a beloved child of God. That's how God works in this world. He takes the things of this world that we think are just everyday things and not that important, and he takes them and he turns them into something incredible. He opens our eyes and shows us a world where we are loved, where the boxes that we have been put into don't need to hold us, that we can be more than what society tells us we are. We can be more than what we were born into. We can be more than any mistakes that we might have made. God sees us for who we truly are. He doesn't see a broken person. He doesn't see a person who is discarded from society. He doesn't see someone who can be objectified and used as a prop to settle a question or to scare children into behaving. He doesn't see us as fallen and broken and unhelpful. He doesn't see us as unworthy. He looks at us and he sees what we can be, and he opens our eyes to that beauty. That there is more to this world than we ever knew. That there is more to our lives than darkness and sadness and the box we've been put into. There is beauty, there is glory, there is confidence, and there is love. That is what God sees in us. And he comes to us in so many different ways, using so many different things of this world to help us see that message, that we are loved, we are worthy, and we are his disciples. Amen. Our hymn of the day today is "Lead Me, Guide Me."